Brian Kelly takes the LSU job. Why? Well, I would say there's a litany of reasons. Do I think $95 million over 10 years is a big reason? Hell yeah. I got to move from South Bend, where I've been over a decade. House probably paid off, got everything dialed in. Like, it's kind of light lifting, even for recruiting or whatever. Like, you know everybody, you know the guys, you know where you're going to go get players. That thing, you kind of got it all built. Once you've been somewhere for 5-6 years, you got to fiefdom there. So in order to get me out of my current job, you got to overpay me. And it became the going rate, considering what happened at Michigan State, right? Oh, well, if Michigan State's not $95 million, damn skippy that LSU has $95 million. So is the money a factor? Of course it is. And part of the money being a factor is Notre Dame, kind of cheap. Not like cheap, hey, let's buy double ply toilet paper and peel it in half and then only use the single ply. Not that kind of cheap, but definitely in the cheaper sort of toilet paper aisle. Definitely in the kind of the mantra that some really, really exclusive brands have, where they go, end of the day, it's kind of an honor for you to work for us. We're Notre Dame. We're the foremost Catholic institution in the United States. We're the foremost private college football program in the United States. We're Notre Dame. And you know what? That sounds really, really, really good. Really good. Until somebody blows you out of the water. Like, look, this is what happened with Urban Meyer back when he took the Florida job. Notre Dame offered him a job, offered him $2 million a year. Florida offered him $4 million a year. He won 2 national championships at Florida. In addition to which, Notre Dame probably should pay you more because it's a harder job. Yes, LSU is in the SEC, and everybody's, buying players and buying dudes, and it's the wild, wild west. And, okay. But in order to get somebody in school, it's harder. To keep somebody in school, it's harder. And this is a guy who had to leave Notre Dame. I can tell you that it's a legit academic institution of higher learning. Not that LSU isn't, not that you can't get a great degree, but there's a different level of work ethic it takes in the classroom to just get into Notre Dame, let alone succeed at Notre Dame, survive at Notre Dame, then succeed at Notre Dame, that it does not take at some of the schools in the SEC. That's what everyone knows. And at some point you go like, don't want to bang my head against the wall and complain that we can't get these guys in school, right? Because in order to take the next step, Notre Dame would get to the college football playoff, and consistently they just didn't have the dudes. They had the offensive linemen. They had some skill position players, but the margin for error was so slight. Obviously the year they were in the Cotton Bowl, and a terrible injury to Jalen Smith, right? But, Jalen Smith was an absolute freak. Great student, good person, horrific injury. But one thing is clear, like replacing him, they had Mantu Te'o. They've had dudes on the defensive side of the ball. But in order to compete at the highest level, you got to have, and we've talked about this before with Jimbo Fisher and what he said when he got to Texas A&M, everybody has to be on board. And it's not just saying you're on board, it's, hey, can we get guys in school, and then can we find ways to keep them in school? Some guys you got to hold their hand. Some guys you got to, constantly in study hall. The problem is there's not a lot of majors to hide guys. There's not really any majors to hide guys in there. They don't have criminal justice. They don't have, starting bonfires. They don't have basket weaving. Like it's a real school. And I think if you're Brian Kelly, you sit there and go like, look, I've done this. I've got Notre Dame stabilized. I've become, wins-wise, the most successful coach in the history of Notre Dame. We've gotten to a national semifinal. We've gotten to prestigious bowl games. We've had top draft picks. We've had our kids graduate college. This is, literally we need a dream season and one more step to get there, and it's really hard to get there. It's really hard. So you're 60 years old, and somebody says, hey, what if I gave you about $100 million to give it one legit shot to win the whole thing? You got to a BCS bowl game when you're at Cincinnati. You got to a national semifinal when you're at Notre Dame. But in order to take that last step, this is a place where everybody is consumed by one thing: winning. Notre Dame wants to win, but they also want great student athletes. They also want guys that represent their brand and have done the work in the class. Like there's a limit there. There's a few number of favors in terms of getting guys in school. And oh yeah, by the way, the last part is it's a lot easier to get guys to go to school when their parents don't have to get on a plane to come see them or to come see them play. Right? Think about it now. Texas is now open for business for the SEC with 2 schools in the state of Texas, and Louisiana is a wellspring of talent. Gone are the days of having to fight over kids from Ohio or go down to Miami and convince them to get on a plane and play in the cold. Now, here's what we do a terrible job. We make it out like Brian Kelly's the worst guy ever for sending a group text to his team that he was going to meet with them at 7 a.m. And then we say, hey, why'd you only meet with them for 11 minutes? Like, hey, guess what? This stuff happens fast. Recruiting happens right away. Brian Kelly does not have the option of, I need a week to think about it. Like, no, that doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. They call you, they offer you $95 million, and they go, hey, man, you got till end of business to decide. Okay, I got to talk some details. We talk some details. We meet with some people. We think about things. And then, all right, I want to do it. Okay, listen, don't tell anybody. We won't tell anybody. We'll announce it tomorrow morning. You can meet with your team tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Great. Here's the problem. Somebody always leaks it. And usually it's the agent who wants to do the victory lap. Sometimes it's somebody within the university. Sometimes it's an underling in the athletic department. But it is almost never the actual coach or somebody connected directly to the coach. It is almost never the actual university. They want fanfare. They don't want to put it on Twitter. They don't want to retweet somebody. Oh, why do you only talk to Notre Dame's kids for 11 minutes? Well, do you think Notre Dame wanted him having one-on-one conversations with his best players? Hey, you know what? This is great, but what if I said you could play in the SEC? It's 15 degrees warmer. The classes are 15% easier, and the girls are 100% better looking. Of course they don't want him talking to his players because he's going to take the players with him, you dopes. We do a terrible job. We vilify anybody who's in power. And we sit there and go like, well, what about player movement? Like, look, the players actually get to move and they don't have to pay a buyout. Players don't affect entire universities, entire athletic departments, entire coaching staffs, families, kids, all this different stuff. Coaches do. I get there's a right way and a wrong way to do stuff. But this is how it happens. The regular season is over. People are recruiting. And if you're not recruiting for LSU, you're recruiting for Notre Dame. If you're not recruiting for Oklahoma, you're recruiting for USC. You got an hour to make a call, dude. We're going to offer you $100 million. Basically a lifetime contract. You will never have to work another day in your life. When you're done, if we fire you or you retire, you can buy a beach. Not a place on a beach, buy a damn beach. So I get it. Like, we all get hurt because we think, that there's some sort of no, man. These guys are the front door to the university. They dramatically affect everything within the university when they're successful. And just like any other job, when you take a new job, you don't, at that very moment, they don't call your boss and go like, hey, he took the new job with, Sirius XM, or he took a new job with Fox. Like, no, that's not how it works. Here's Notre Dame defensive captain Kyle Hamilton. There's an Inside the Garage podcast that's on the Volume, which is Colin Cowherd's new podcast network. He had this to say about the coaches leaving.
At the end of the day, I understand he has to do what's best for him and what's best for his family, what he thinks is best for his family. And, players transfer all the time. And I'm not going to say whether or not I think it's a good decision or not. It's up to him. It's not for me to judge. But, I understand where he's coming from and the situation that he's been in. He's done a lot for the program here, done more than I think anybody expected him to do before he got here, and that's had a big impact on where Notre Dame is now today. We have had 5 straight 10-win seasons, and that definitely does not happen without him.
No question. Notre Dame was a sleeping giant. It was a complete mess. Okay, a complete mess. Brian Kelly gets there, wins 12 games, and goes to a BCS National Championship game in his 3rd season. Right? In 2016, the roof fell in. They had a 10-win season the year before, lost in the Fiesta Bowl. I actually think that's when Jalen Smith got hurt, if I remember correctly. Maybe I think so. Now, maybe that was the Cotton Bowl. That was the Cotton Bowl in 18? Anyway, They won 4 games in 2016, and he revamped some of his style. He changed some of his coaching. He changed some of his staff. And you know what? It worked. 10-3, 12-1, 11-2, 10-2, 11-1. Like, look, dude, outside of winning the whole thing, he did everything he was supposed to do. They suffered an incredible tragedy early on, and then, of course, they had the terrible season, and enough people stuck by him where he kept his job because there were people who wanted to run him out. We talked about him with him on this show. I'm not a Brian Kelly defender. I just think the guy's a really good football coach, and he wants to do one thing, and that's win. And LSU is a place where they don't care about much. You yell at our players. They don't care. If you just go win. Get good players and good kids. Go win games. I don't know if it works, but I can tell you that's the why. That's the legit why.